What's up, Rockets? I'm Edwin Rivera.
And I'm Amanda Olvera.
And this is J Rocket TV. For this week's broadcast, we're bringing you a recap of summer 2020.
The biggest story, of course, was the COVID-19 pandemic.
The virus had great impact on countries like Italy, France, and Brazil. Hardest hit, however, was the United States, which as of the writing of this broadcast has over 6 million cases and 185,000 deaths.
Many of the decisions and handling of supplies to combat the virus was left up to individual states to handle, so cases varied from one state to the other.
Texas individuals didn't handle it so well, and it took a surge in cases before Governor Abbott mandated the wearing of face masks just before the 4th of July weekend.
As of the writing of this episode, Texas currently has over 626,000 cases with over 12,500 deaths.
Bexar County currently sits at around 46,000 cases and 800 confirmed deaths.
As a precautionary measure, schools statewide were shut down before they came back from spring break. With the remainder of the school year being completed through distance learning, elected officials and health experts were hopeful that the curve would flatten before school started back up in fall.
Unfortunately, this wasn't the case, and many schools were forced to reopen online.
There were some exceptions, however. Bernie ISD reopened on August 12 with face-to-face instruction. Students, teachers, and staff must wear masks and social distance.
Here is the tentative plan for Judson ISD. If cases rise exponentially, this plan might change. August 24th was the first day of virtual instruction. Teachers have been using programs like Zoom and Canvas for virtual instruction. Families have the option to continue with this model. On September 8th, certain students will be able to return on campus if they meet the following criteria. A student has no internet connectivity at home. A student receives special education services through a specialized program such as Life Skills. A student is a child of a single parent or two working parents, and childcare is unavailable. And a student is a child of a first responder, such as law enforcement, fire department, and EMS. And on September 28th, families will have the option to have their students return to campus or continue to learn virtually.
One of the other major shifts since spring was the racial justice movement. On May 25, 2020, George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black American man, was killed in Minneapolis, Minnesota. During an arrest for allegedly using a counterfeit bill, Derek Chauvin, a white police officer, knelt on Floyd's neck for almost 8 minutes while Floyd was handcuffed and lying face down.
This sparked anger, which led to protests, riots, lootings, and burning of buildings. Some groups even called to defund the police.
Others seek to restore legitimacy to the police by implementing procedural reforms to make officers more accountable.
With the world under quarantine for the last 3 months, digital tools play an even larger role as organizations large and small navigate the new normal.
Not surprisingly, social media platforms have experienced a significant boom as well. Also, a new wave of young actors, artists, and influencers are embracing their identities and making the landscape more diverse than ever.
There has been a rise in Instagram shopping with a feature called Instagram Checkout, which allows you to buy anything without ever leaving the app. Even as COVID forced thousands of businesses to stop, Instagram is still alive and well.
The pandemic also hit the entertainment industry pretty hard, with movies and TV shows having to shut down, but there have been a few movies released.
And now here's Alfred Fabro with this week's movie review.
Hey Rockets, while we were all in quarantine and movie theaters were closed, it was the rise of streaming services. And surprisingly enough, there were quite a few original movies that came out this summer. One of the most interesting and least talked about, surprisingly, was this short film called Host.
Is there anyone there? Please come forward.
What was that? Amy, was that you?
I heard it. I heard something.
I think there's something here. Do you see that?
Host is a short film that runs about an hour long. It's about 6 friends that get visited by a demonic force during an online seance. Honestly, I wasn't expecting this kind of short film to be as good as it was, especially since the premise reminded me a lot of this movie called Unfriended. And Unfriended was a horror movie in its own right. Despite this film only being 57 minutes, there is a lot of rewatchability. There's many moments that were very subtle, and you had to pay attention to the background, and it was very much appreciated, especially leading up to the bigger setups of the movie. The way that a lot of these scenes were accomplished are admirable, especially knowing that they wrote and filmed all of this during the pandemic. Admittedly, there's a few complaints that aren't too major. The movie does take a lot of horror movie tropes that we've all seen before, and to a point in the story, you know exactly what's going to happen. But at the same time, it does its own twists with these tropes. It's a good quick watch, and it's unique for its timing, definitely since it takes place during the pandemic, which also gives a more genuine feel. So yes, I do recommend this to you, the audience, and this is a 7 out of 10. It's probably more of a 6, but it's a 7.
And now for this week's Word on the Street. And the question for this week is, what have you been doing to pass the time in quarantine?
I play lots of softball every day, every weekend. Nothing special. I just lay in my bed, but that's it. I have been watching Netflix and learning a new language.
I pass the time by watching a movie every night.
What I did to pass the time in quarantine was get into politics, watch some anime.
How I passed time during quarantine was getting a job at Chick-fil-A. You know, I worked every day, and other than that, I just slept. I didn't really have, like, a lot to do.
Just chill, watch movies, and play some video games. That's about it. Oh, that and read some books.
To pass the time, I'll be analyzing horror movies. Like, that's the way to go.
Well, that's about all the time we have today, Rockets. I'm Edwin Rivera.
And I'm Amanda Olvera.
And this has been J Rocket TV. To see more of our broadcasts and other content, make sure to subscribe to our channel at youtube.com/JRocketTV. We're supposed to do something here, but